On this episode of Late Night with Dee, we look at the love from a different angle. The angle of losing a loved one through death. It's something many have to deal with, but few talk about. So tonight, I invite Michelle Samuel and Kennedy Austin to share their experiences of losing a loved one through death.
Pour yourself a glass of wine. Get comfortable, talk to me, what's on your mind? Ooh, I wanna get close to you. I'm talking about sex, love, relationships too.
Welcome Michelle and Kennedy to Late Night with Dee.
And thank you for having me, Delia.
Yes, so I know today our topic is a bit off from what we normally discuss, but it's something that needs to be discussed, and I believe the two of you are very good representations of what we're going to be talking about this evening. So tonight we're having, Kennedy and I are having Pink Moscato, and Michelle is having Shamdo Peach, non-alcoholic champagne. Yes.
Get comfortable, talk to me, what's on your mind?
Michelle, how does it taste?
Excellent.
I've never had the non-alcoholic champagne.
Oh, well, this is all I drink, non-alcoholic. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, tonight we're talking about losing a loved one through death, and we've all had an experience of such. But Kennedy, I'm going to start with you.
Gentleman first.
The lone gentleman first.
Yes.
Just start by telling me who the person was and your relationship with them.
Okay. Which one?
You've had more than one.
Yes. Well, my grandfather. Well, he was the one that really hit me the most, because I saw him wither away, and he used to, when I came to see him, he was on his favorite couch. And then he told me that make me a promise to him before he goes, that since I was a little boy I had anger issues, so he told me, because of the profession I was in, he told me, well, promise me before he goes that I control my temper, and I did so. And
have you been controlling your temper since? Okay,
yes,
good.
yes. And it's
the other person was... The other person you lost?
The other person I lost, she was a dear friend to me. She was almost like a girlfriend to me, and
you said almost like a girlfriend to you, and
almost.
He blushed so much.
Because we were almost like we were good friends, and she probably wanted to take it to another level, but I'll never know. Yeah, I'll never know, because the day when it happened, the day that she passed, the Saturday and the Sunday morning, I got to know that when I was preparing to go to work.
Wow.
Like, they called me, like my colleague called me, because I guess the neighbor was related to her in a way, and then she relayed the message, and he called me and he told me so. Because that day I was hearing like a lot of funeral music over the radio, and I was wondering like what's going on. And then when I was putting the buttons on my shirt, and he called me and he told me so. Because the whole week I was feeling ill. That this week, like it will be Independence Week, like the whole week I was feeling ill, and I did not know why, and she was in the hospital and she never told me.
Okay, so we'll get back to yours. I want to speak about Michelle. You lost your husband. Tell me a little bit about, first, before you even go into losing him, tell me about how you all met.
Wow, that's a very interesting story. Okay, so we first met when I was 14.
Wow.
Yes, so we knew each other several years before we rekindled. And he was 18 at the time. So in my mom's eyes, he was too old for me.
In everybody's eyes. Only in your eyes, he was not too old.
He was too old for me, so she felt that I should say my goodbyes,
Right.
and we should part ways.
As with any other mother would say.
That's correct. She put him through an interview process. You know, she would tell me, invite him over to the house so I could meet him, and she would test his manly skills by having him do things, little chores. I don't know why she did that, but she did that with everybody. And she would have him carry heavy stuff, and to prove that he was a man, you know, that he had that strength.
And how old was he? He was 18?
18, yeah. And he was, of course, willing to do anything she asked him to do, because, I mean, that's mommy. But then afterwards she said, you know, I cannot get over the age thing.
Yeah.
So she said, I'm sorry, you have to say your goodbye.
Afterwards she make him carry all the heavy
you know,
things.
but, you know. So I wanted to say my goodbye in a very private way, but unfortunately it didn't happen that way. He normally used to ride his bicycle in the area with a group of guys, and that day he had the entire group of guys with him, although I told him to come alone. And I kept begging him, you need to ask them to go, and he kept saying, no, I want them there. He was not
getting the message.
He just was not getting it. And the thing is, my mom was waiting down the steps, waiting for me, so I had to do it then and there. So I said to him,
in front of everybody?
I had no choice, because she was watching, and he wouldn't tell them to leave. So I said, okay, it's now or never. And I said as quietly as I could, but in a way that he would hear, that I'm sorry, but we have to break up because my mom doesn't approve because of your age. And that was the first time I ever saw a guy cry.
Wow.
And his friends started backing off slowly.
Oh, so they finally got the message.
Yeah, they started backing off slowly, and then they started to ride away, and he just stood there looking at me like, you're joking, right?
Aww.
And I told him, no, I'm not joking. And then he started to cry. He said, okay, fine, no problem. And he turned around and he rode his bike away. And that was the last time I saw him
at
around
that
time. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take a break now, and when we come back we're going to go further into the whole relationship and the whole loss. Okay guys, so when we come back, more from Michelle and Kennedy.
Hi guys, welcome to Wine Tips 101, selecting that perfect bottle of wine. At a restaurant, all of your senses come into play when it comes to selecting that perfect bottle of wine. But three major senses are very, very important. Your sight. There you're going to see the texture of the wine, the color, the balance, the way the light goes through it. Also, if it's a red or white, you know which color attributes you're looking for. The smell, which is very, very important, because it will tell you if you have a bottle of vinegar, meaning that it's corked, or you have a nice bouquet coming from that bottle. And lastly, taste. Nothing tells a perfect bottle of wine than the taste. So practice on those senses, practice at home if you need to, and go to the restaurant and speak the language of wine.
On Late Night with Dee. On Late Night with Dee.
Welcome back to Late Night with Dee, and I am here with Michelle and Kennedy, and we're talking about losing a loved one through death. Okay, Kennedy, so back to you. Tell me about the week leading up to you finding out the person died.
Okay, well, with her, it was I'd known her for 3 months already.
Right.
And we met. I just got a random text that time. BBM Messenger was in style, and I just got a random message from this girl saying, "Hey, how are you?" And then from there we developed that relationship.
So it was a fresh relationship.
Yes, we developed that. On Christmas Day, I was working that day by myself on that day, and we just became good friends from then. And I'd go and see her, and then I met her little daughter. To this day, I don't even know where she is right now.
The daughter?
The daughter. The last time I saw the daughter, I was working and she saw me, she hugged me, and I almost cried because she looks like her daughter. The daughter looks like herself. And from there, she told me, the Monday she told me that that was the best 3 months she's ever had. She has never smiled and laughed so much, because when we used to be together, I should just make her laugh alone. And then the Tuesday, like, I felt like something was a bit off, because when I talked to her, she did not answer, not knowing that she was in the hospital. And then I felt ill, and then somebody told me, tell me, "You don't look well." I said, "Well, I don't feel well, like something is off."
Right.
But I shrugged it off. And then I sent her a voice note saying that, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Because what happened was that she wanted me to meet her parents.
Right.
And that...
Did she respond to that message?
No, she never responded to the message, not knowing that she was in the hospital.
Did she know she was sick though?
Yes, she was. She knew she was sick. She had she had diabetes, from what I understood.
Diabetes?
Diabetes. And she was taking insulin. And when they told me, like, through the whispers in the wind and so on, at the funeral, the day that, and the thing about it is, the day we are supposed to meet her parents was the day of her funeral.
What?
Yes. And that was a week before my birthday.
So how did you find out she died? How did you find out finally that she was in the hospital and she had passed?
Well, when the Sunday when that happened, it came to be that I was hearing a lot of funeral music, and my mom put on the radio, and I was like, they was playing out of, you know, these old funeral songs they sing, and I'm like, what's going on? Something strange. So I'm getting a phone call like about minutes to 8, and he's telling me, "Oi, you know that girl died?" I say, "Which girl?" And then he mentioned the girl's name, and then I'm like, oh my God. And I went down on my knees, I made the sign of the cross, and I said, okay. I breathed, I sighed, I took a
Did you accept the news they gave you, or were you?
It was a sudden shock, because I knew I was supposed to see her the following Friday, because that Friday I was off that day, and that day I was going to meet her parents and stuff like that, and that just went completely off.
So, but how did you deal with it?
Well, I just was feeling a little bit remorseful that I did not say my goodbyes.
That's the worst part.
I didn't really cry to say, but you know, it felt like my heart was empty.
Like you were numb.
I was numb. I just went to work, did my work, got home, and that's how it was. And they didn't bury her until she died actually this week is the week of her anniversary of her death actually, and it didn't take almost in the week in April now. The week before is my birthday, so that the week before, that Friday was her funeral. So, and then the following Friday, my birthday, it rained the entire day. It was like she's telling me that she missed me or something. So, and I just, tears started coming on my eyes.
So you finally got to cry and let out the
yes, that day for my birthday, tears just
How long ago was that?
It was about 4 or 5 years now. Yes.
But I know it feels like it was yesterday.
Yes, and the thing about it is she was someone that's trying to change her life for the better, and trying to build herself up as a person, try to get back on her feet.
Right.
And that just happened, and it really it kind of to see the person and the way the funeral happened, and then.
Were you at the funeral?
Yes, I was at the funeral. They said one time, and then when I reached there, they were already halfway through the funeral. So it was like, wow. And then the one family member from one side is calling for one family member outside the church, and then when we reached to the cemetery, it was her friends versus her mother's side versus her
the normal funeral drama.
Her child's father's side, and I was there. I had to tell them put her in because it was really becoming a little hostile,
right,
and stuff like that. And that when the child saw me, told them, that's not mommy friend. Look, mommy friend, and she's pointing at me
because she knows for the past 3 months.
Yeah,
right?
for the past 3 months, and it was very disheartening to see that I had to put somebody. I had to make the decision because nobody didn't want to put, and everybody was arguing. So I just had to tell them, "Hey guys, just put her in. It's time.
So how did you deal with the grief? Because I can imagine that you all were together for, well, not together, but you all were friends and leading up to being together for 3 months. So obviously that's the time you're in love and sparks flying, and you're being close without even saying anything to each other. And you suddenly lost that person without even getting a chance to say goodbye.
Yes.
How did you deal with? I'm just trying to understand how you would deal with something like that.
It's like you just try to distract yourself, like you say, as they say, out of sight, out of mind. So you do work, you get your mind preoccupied doing stuff, but it lingers in your mind, like it just creeps up on you, and then you just say no, you're just not going to think about it, and then just go back into it. So that's how I deal with it, basically.
Okay, Michelle, your story is similar but different.
Yes, it is.
Tell me about when you found out your husband was ill.
Okay, so we're gonna fast forward from the first time we met. We're gonna fast forward 17 years. And we met again after 17 years. And we reconnected through Facebook. I had recently taken a photo and posted it up as my profile, and it caught his attention. And he says, "I hope that picture was for me." I said, "Hold on, who's that?"
After 17 years.
After 17 years. So I'm like, "Hold on, who's that? Is that Glenn?" It's like, "Yes, that's me. You forget me." I'm like, "I could never forget you." So he's like, "Can we meet?" I said, "Of course. Where are you? Are you in St. Lucia? Are you out of St. Lucia?" He said, "Well, I woke up north, but I can meet you in town." And that's how it started. We would meet up. He would come by to see me. We would go for walks by the square, and we just realized that the flame that was there in the beginning never went out.
Right.
Never died out. So it was really quickly rekindled. And the thing about it is, it didn't take a year to happen. We reconnected in January, and we moved in together in February, and we were married in August.
What?
So this was just like catapulted.
It's almost like a continuation from where you are.
Yes. And the thing is, it didn't seem that strange to us because we had always felt that we were meant for each other.
Right.
It was just that circumstances didn't allow it to happen the way it should have. Although what we did say is that if we didn't separate, our kids would not have been born, because he had a son. And he's very grateful and loving for his son. So that's something he will never regret.
Right.
And when we got together, it was like combining the two families.
Like the Brady Bunch.
Because I had already had a few kids myself.
Right.
And he was willing to welcome them as his own, and that really did touch me, because I had felt that that no guy would want a woman with, you know, that amount of baggage.
Right.
And he said, "I don't care. I love you and I love them." So he was willing to take them in. And
so how long were you all together, married, before?
And this is where it kind of starts to hurt a bit. It's almost as if this was like a cruel thing that was done to us. So we got married in August, And then a year and about 4 months later, he started to get sick.
Really? It was so soon?
Very soon. So we didn't really get to enjoy, each other in our marriage. And when I say started to get sick, I'm saying that there are little signs that I noticed, but we didn't put two and two together. We didn't know that it was related. So there were things like chest pains or back pains or persistent cough. And he thought it was just a cold.
Right, as everybody else would think.
Yes.
Just...
And at the time he was working security, so he thought it was all the standing up was making his back hurt and all of that. And he used to do a lot of heavy lifting, so maybe that's why my chest hurts. So we never kind of put everything together, but I was somebody that was very meticulous. I was always taking notes of every little thing that was wrong. And I would be saying, babe, I noticed this, and it came right after that, and right after that. And he thought I was just being paranoid.
Paranoid, yeah.
He said, I like to worry too much. You women just like to worry. So I told him, can you please just go see a doctor? What are you going to do doctor for?
Men, they don't like to go to the doctor.
He never wanted to go to a doctor. That's the last place he would go. I'm my own doctor. I know when I'm sick. So then the fatigue kicked in. So he would get really tired and he would go to lie down. He said, I'm just going to take a nap. But then the nap went for hours. And then when he got up, he was like really, really tired. But the strangest part was, while in conversation, he would fall asleep. I don't know anybody who, while speaking to you, would just fall asleep. I mean, that's not normal. Nobody can be that tired. And it happened consistently. And it was not until he got really, really ill, that's around the time of, I think it was chikungunya. So that was when it really hit him, that he had no choice but to get medical attention. So that at that time when he contracted it, I was not with him. I was at my mom's. I was helping her with something at her house. And then he called me and said, babe, I'm really sick. I mean, I have fever and all of that, And when men are sick, they become like babies. So it's like they depend on us to take care of them. So I gladly went home to take care of my baby, and only to find out he's in bed, all covered up, high fever, he's trembling. Like, that's not the Glenn that I know. And then, of course, he confirmed that, yes, he had the chikungunya. We went to the health center. They confirmed that's what he had. And they gave him the regular meds that were being offered at the time. And he recovered about 3 to 4 days later. Unfortunately, I got it immediately after he got well, and he had to end up taking care of me. But then when I got better, I noticed he started getting sick again. So I'm like, okay, is that like a relapse of the chikungunya, or is that something else?
So he still had not gone to the doctor?
He still had not gone to the doctor. I mean, gone to get the meds for the chikungunya, fine, but to go to get a checkup, no. So I told him maybe we should go to another doctor to find out what's wrong this time. And he did not want to go. He was still saying, that's the chikungunya, I'll just take the same medication I took the last time and I'll be fine. And that's what he did. He has been his stubborn self.
Right.
And that's what he kept doing. And it wasn't until he noticed a lesion on his groin area that he started to take it really seriously. And he started to ask, but where is this? What is this? Why is it happening? And we went to do several tests, like blood tests, to find out, was there an infection? Is it a bacterial or whatnot? And they couldn't find out what it was. They didn't know what it was. They ruled out everything, and they did not know. It was just there. It was getting bigger, and nobody could tell us what it was. So finally, I went to the internet. I started doing some serious research. So I started plugging in all his symptoms.
Right.
And I said, okay, maybe I can find something that matches. I can possibly do some like process of elimination and figure out what it is on my own, because the doctors don't know. He doesn't know. But unbeknownst to me, he was doing his own research on his own as well, but keeping it from me, because he didn't want to worry me. Or he maybe didn't want to hear me say, I told you so. But he was doing his own research. And then everything that popped up in terms of possible, diagnoses was all cancer. Everything was pointing to cancer. And I was saying, please God, let that not be it. Let it be something that he can just take a pill for or something for, and it will just disappear. We just got married. We just had our son. And this was the wrong time for this to happen, because we had plans to travel and to enjoy our lives together. We had just moved into a new home, and this is what is happening. Unfortunately, he had to stop working because he was too tired to work. And me recovering from a C-section, I now had to get up with my son in the carrier, and I went out and we tried to make money that way. We would sell products that we had. We would make local juice, we would cook food, and we would sell that. And I would come home and check on him, feed my son, then head back to town. It was a task, and I did it all with my son in the carrier. But it became really tasking because there were some customers that felt that a crying baby on a person wasn't really attractive.
Right.
So a lot of them refused whenever I tried to sell. So what I asked him was, would you be willing to watch our son while I went out? But the thing is, my son was really attached to me at the time. So the minute I left the house, he started to scream. And my husband didn't have the energy to take care of him.
Right.
So he would be calling me and say, babe, Isaac is screaming, you need to come home. And I'm like, but I haven't even sold like a couple of things yet. He's like, well, you need to hurry because he's crying. He doesn't want the bottle, he wants you.
Okay. We're going to have to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with the story. Sounds very tough, especially being a woman and a mother. But when we come back, we will hear more from Michelle and her story. Yes. Later there, my
Hi guys, welcome to Wine Tips 101, selecting that perfect bottle of wine. At a restaurant, all of your senses come into play when it comes to selecting that perfect bottle of wine. But three major senses are very, very important. Your sight. There you gotta see the texture of the wine, the color, the balance, the way the light goes through it. Also, if it's a red or white, you know which color attributes you're looking for. The smell, which is very, very important because it will tell you if you have a bottle of vinegar, meaning that it's corked, or you have a nice bouquet coming from that bottle. And lastly, taste. Nothing tells a perfect bottle of wine than the taste. So practice on those senses, practice at home if you need to, and go to the restaurant and speak the language of wine.
On Late Night with Dee. On Late Night with Dee.
Okay, welcome back to Late Night with Dee, and I'm here with Michelle and Kennedy, and we're discussing losing a loved one through death. Okay, Michelle, so your story where we stopped, you were telling me that you went back home and you saw him shivering in bed and he was ill.
Well, we stopped where I said he kept calling me saying I had to come get my son because
Oh yes, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I would have to kind of wrap up what I was doing really quickly and
Yes.
rush back home, and I would have to end up getting my son and coming back down with him and trying my best to sell whatever we had
right.
to make ends meet. And just to let you know, I mean, we had rent to pay, bills to pay, his medication to buy, all on the products we were selling. And what happened was that I told him we need to start asking for help. We cannot do this on our own. We need to reach out. And that's when our church, stepped in, and they assisted us in the best way that they could. Of course, the support and the prayers that we needed. And we also appealed to the public for support as well.
So at that time, he already knew, or you all already knew that he had cancer?
Well, yes, we had already known. The only thing is that it wasn't confirmed by the doctors. We had done our research because the doctor said they didn't know. They couldn't find anything.
Oh.
It was only when the decision was made to do a biopsy on one of the growths that he had to test it to find out, is it malignant or what is this growth made out of. And he went to the hospital. They did the biopsy, and he came home really groggy. He didn't know where he was. He came home and he lay down, and I was saying to myself, I'm praying that this is not what we already know it is. I'm just praying that's not what it is.
Some miracle happened.
Something else is going on, and it's not that. But I think we had gotten to the point where we had already come to accept it, so that when we went for the official results and the doctor told us, it didn't hit us as hard. And I think that was a way of preparing ourselves for it. Because I think if we didn't prepare ourselves, it would have been a totally different story. And
so fast forward to the latter days. I remember seeing you, and your hair was shaved off.
Oh,
tell me about that time.
That time, that was a very emotional time for me, because I was, interestingly enough, going for a lot of backlash. Because what persons were saying was I should allow him to, leave the island and go to get treatment.
Right.
And Glenn was adamant that he's not going anywhere without me. And it was difficult to go because of the stage of his condition. I mean, he was diagnosed in stage 3 going on to 4 already.
Wow.
By the
what
time.
What type of cancer was it?
It was lymphoma.
Oh boy.
Right, generalized lymphoma. And I'm talking about the entire body. It had already spread. So the chances of him surviving were really slim based on the information we were getting, but we were really optimistic that a miracle would happen.
So you all had decided to, instead of him going overseas and you staying here, that you were going to spend the last days together? Was that?
Well, it wasn't the last days, because we never thought it was his last days. We were always saying to ourselves, there's something that will work, and there's something that we can do to cure him. And at the time, it was the chemo. That was the answer. That's what we thought was the answer. And the interesting thing about it is that when we went to see the doctors to talk about the chemo, they said that they would be administered in several stages. But what happened was that he had gotten so ill after one of the treatments, they had to skip a session. And during that time, he developed an infection, and he got a fever, and he got even sicker. So during that time, it worsened because he missed that treatment. And that was a really difficult time for me, because I remember waking up and realizing that I have to do something with the house, because they were talking about confining him to the hospital in a quarantine type situation. I'm like, you know what, we can do that at home, because we live in a 2-bedroom house. So what I did was I moved the kids over to our room, and I quarantined the kids' room for him. So we literally had to separate ourselves from each other to ensure that, he wouldn't contract the cold or any kind of bacteria from anybody else in the house.
What was it like when you found out, okay, this is it, he's not going to get better?
I never allowed myself to feel that. I never allowed myself to feel that. So you
never really accepted it?
No, never, because I didn't want to lose him. That was the best relationship I ever had. That was the best man I was ever with, and there was no way I was going to lose him. And in the act of cutting off my hair, that was showing or proving that the support that this is not going to happen, and whatever he's going through, it's affecting me too, and I'm there with him.
Because I remember you had lost a lot of weight.
That is true. That is true. It was a difficult time because I had to see him suffer, and I felt like I couldn't really do anything to help. all I could do was be there and soothe him and talk to him. But in terms of being a pain medication, there wasn't much I could do. And he was doing his part, you know, being the bigger person and smiling and saying, babe, I'm okay. You know, you're helping. I'm feeling better. And I knew he was lying through his teeth, but he was doing his part, you know, to hold up his head. And in the moment when I decided to cut my hair, he said, no, you don't have to do that. I said, no, that's my decision.
Right.
You know, to show that I stand in solidarity with you and what you're going through. Because he started to lose his hair. Yes. And he had always loved his hair because he started to grow it out, his afro and everything. And I would corner it back and it started to fall out. And he started to, you know, to make fun of it. Hey, babe, another one down the drain. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. So I went to the hairdresser and I told her, cut it off. She said, what? I said, cut it off. And she cut it into like a boy cut. And when he realized what I was doing, he's like, baby, what are you doing? Because he was in the hairdresser, the salon with me. And I told him, I'm doing this. I know why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for you. And I cried in the chair. Every lock that fell, I cried. And then the hairdresser whispered in my ear, remember why you're doing this. It'll grow back. Remember why you're doing this. And that gave me an extra boost of courage. And I cried and I took the photo after I wiped off my face. And I posted it just to show people that, you know, it's a hard time, but I'm going through it and I'm dealing with it. You know, so thank you for your support. I'm dealing with it. And then finally, when he started to lose even more hair, he decided to shave it off completely and go bald. I said, okay, am I ready to make that step? And I didn't talk to anybody about it. I had decided I was going to go to a barber. I was going to go to one of the professionals that he knew and do it behind his back and then just show up.
Right.
But I said, you know what? No. I prayed about it first. And I just got the feeling that the best person to do it would have been him.
So he shaved it off?
He was the one who shaved it off. So I brought him the shavers. I brought him the razor blade. I said, baby, I want you to do it. He's like, what? I want you to do it. There's no other person that deserves to do it better than you. You know me, I know you. And this will be our connection forever, no matter what happens.
Okay, so moving forward past that stage into, okay, whether we like it or not, he's passed. Tell me about that experience. You've lost the love of your life, the father of your child. Tell me about that experience. How did you deal with that?
Dealing with it came with accepting something that I was taught in the church that I attend. In the faith that we have, we are taught that when your loved one dies in the faith, that they will be risen again on the Lord's return. So that was what I was holding on to. He died a saved man, so that when the Lord returns, he is going to rise again. So I will see him again. And in replaying that, you know, that scripture and that,
you sought comfort.
Yes. So that's what I kept holding on to. I kept saying the person and the body who was buried, this person will not remain there. I will see this person again. And that's what I held on to. And person thought I was crazy. But I mean, don't you feel lonely? Don't you miss him? Don't you cry?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like how do you go home after the funeral and there's no Glenn there? How do you do that? Like, how do you continue doing things that you would normally do? Like stuff y'all did together, like there's no calling Glenn or there's no shouting at Glenn for something he did wrong.
I love shouting at him. The makeup was awesome.
Even that, like, how do you say one day, okay, I'm going to move on? Like, how do you deal with all of that? He wasn't just a boyfriend, he wasn't just a friend, he was the love of your life and your husband. Yes. How did you, like, what did you do to move past all this?
It's not a well-kept secret. It is something that people know about if they've been there. And it had a lot to do with the relationship I had with God, because I pray a lot. And our house is always filled with prayer. And praying kept me going. it kept giving me the strength I needed. I literally had to select certain songs that I would sing to myself to keep myself from crying. And I literally had to pick different prayers to whisper to myself to keep that strength going. Because whenever I stepped out of that house, I knew I would encounter people who would say, how are you doing? Are you okay? And I would hate those questions because it would really bring me back to the point of, he's not here.
Yeah, but at that point, don't you think you were still in denial?
And it took me a while to admit that, because all the time I was saying, I'm fine, it doesn't affect me and whatnot, but I realized that I was in denial. And I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I never went to the grave. I had never seen where he was buried.
You didn't go to the...
No, I never went to the cemetery.
Now that stuff, that I don't understand.
Like that one, I just...
So do you regret not going to the grave?
A part of me does, but the other part of me doesn't, because I don't know. All this strength that I had shown on the day, would I just crumple into a heap and just fall? I don't even know. I don't know. But what I knew was that the support system that I had throughout his illness was the persons in the church. And they stood with me in the church. They said, if you don't want to go, we will stay here with you. And they stayed there to comfort me.
Because I know going to the funeral and actually watching the person go down into the grave is almost like closure. So I don't understand not going. Because I myself, I had a very close friend. Well, at the time he was an ex of mine and he passed. When he passed, we were not together. But he was a very dear friend of mine and he passed. And I cannot not imagine going to see him. And I mean, I couldn't, truth be told, I didn't last in the cemetery because it was just too much for me. I had to end up leaving. But to actually say my final goodbyes, I even put stuff in the coffin with him, and like I just cannot imagine. Like I would not be able to probably live with myself if I had not gone.
I think everybody deals with it in their own way, but there was an incident that happened at the church, which was one of the main reasons for me deciding that I was not going to go.
Okay.
And then the church member said, you know what, you don't need to go, because if it's going to be that hostile, we don't want you to go. And so I stayed in the church, and the church members comforted me. But then what I realized in the years that have passed, I have been always referring to him as my husband is. I never said he was. I never used the past tense. It was always the present tense. And up to this day, and maybe that's why you said I would have needed that closure. Up to this day, I would board a bus heading towards the north. And the moment it takes that right turn to go on the stretch of highway, my head would instinctively go to the left to look at that cemetery. Because
so have you visited the grave?
I've never visited the grave.
Wow.
And I don't know when I will ever be able to. But I just know that whenever it comes into view, my eyes instinctively just fall there.
I think you need to take a visit to that grave. I think you need to. Probably when your son is old enough, and I think you really need to take a visit. Because
well, I think I owe them that, for them to visit the grave.
Yes.
Especially him, Isaac himself, you know, to see this is where your daddy was buried. But at the same time, I prefer the image of him remembering his dad alive, and that's the image that he remembers, as opposed to him saying your daddy is in the ground there. He would not understand that.
That's right. Would you ever move on? Can you move on? Like, is there a fear of moving on, that you move on with somebody and something similar is that ever a thought?
I never once gave it thought. I always had it in my head that I would never get married again, and I would never look at another man again.
Wow,
because that's the type of bond that I had with Glenn, and nobody understood that. And even before Glenn passed, in joking conversation on the phone, he'd be like, now, you know, if I die, you know, you have to marry again, right?
Oh my God.
I said, I would never do that. He said, but if you die, go to marry again, what happened to you, girl? So I would laugh it off. I said, but that's you, but I'm different. He said, baby, if anything happens to me, I want you to be happy. And that's what I really loved about him. He was always putting my happiness first. And so after he passed, I kept wearing the rings a year after he passed. And then my church elders would say to me, but Michelle, what are you doing? When you have these rings on your fingers, you're literally telling other people that you're taken, you're married, and you're not. Exactly. You can't move on when you do that.
I guess you're just not ready to move on.
I wasn't ready.
I mean, for me, it was very tough losing an ex or a friend so far as your husband or life partner. Kennedy, if you had final words to say to your loved one, what would it have been? Because I know you never got to say goodbye. If you had a chance to say goodbye, what would you have said?
I would say to her that if I had a chance, that I miss her. I know we had a lot of fun. I wish things could have been better for her. I wish I could have been there more for her, and I wish that probably she could have been alive to see probably her daughter get married and graduate and stuff like that, because at that time her daughter was just in infant school when she passed, so it was very difficult for her and stuff like that.
Michelle, if you could see Glenn right now, what would you like to say to him?
If he had not passed and I had gotten to say my goodbye, because I didn't get to do it either. I didn't get to say my goodbyes.
Oh.
Somebody else told me he had passed.
Right.
So if I had seen him, I would tell him, you're a liar. You told me you were coming home and you knew you were dying. You're a liar, because that's what he did. He would call me and he'd tell me, baby, I'm coming home next week. They booked my ticket for me. And the whole time the man knew he was dying. So he was still trying to, he still had me in mind, right, and wanting to know that I was okay. So I would just want to say to him, I love you, I miss you. You're the best person I ever knew. And I can't wait to see you again.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming and talking about such a touching subject. And I hope it gives some comfort to our viewers out there who may have gone or is going through a similar situation as the two of you, and, well, I guess myself as well.
Yes.
So,
right,
thank you for coming.
And thank you for
we can
having
still
us.
toast even if it's a sad moment. Thank you guys for watching another, well, not so exciting, but another episode of Late Night with Dee.
Pour yourself a glass of wine, get comfortable, talk to me, what's on your mind? Ooh, I wanna get close to you. I'm talking about sex, love, relationships too. What's your secret and your fantasies? Yeah, and we keeping it real.